What do you need to know about Tricare if you're under age 65? Well, here to talk with me about this is Katie Vitava, founder of Good Care. Katie, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
So, more about Tricare.
That's right. We've had a couple of podcasts already about Tricare, and Tricare is a really huge program for people in the military, retired military, and Tricare under 65 is also for people who are in active military duty. So it's very big, but what we're going to talk about today is Tricare for folks under 65. And before we spoke about Tricare for Life, which is folks who are over 65 and are on Medicare and fully retired. But Tricare itself, just the word Tricare, could be active duty or people who are retired but under 65 and not on Medicare.
All right, so hand walk us through what we need to know then.
Okay. Well, if people are active duty or if they're retired, certainly they are can enroll in Tricare. And as I said, it's a really big program. It covers all types of health services. It can cover dental and eyewear as well. But we do find sometimes that folks might want to consider other options. More commonly when people are retired, if they don't live near a military base, they might want to see, will I keep Tricare? Or there's also something to know about Tricare is it has multiple tiers. The lowest cost tier, tier 1, involves providers who are in-network, providers who are signed up with Tricare. But depending on where people live or the care that they need, they might want to have out-of-network providers, which actually you can do in Tricare as well. It just will have a higher deductible and a higher cost. So people need to balance, as always, in any health insurance decision. What are their health needs? What are the health needs of their family? And what will that plan cover? And then particularly at this time of year, which is annual enrollment for the Affordable Care Act plans, would they perhaps be better covered through an option like that or through an employer plan?
So I guess a couple questions. If you have so many options, what's the best way about going to evaluate which might be best for you?
The best way to go about evaluating your options of what's going to suit you best, whether it's Tricare, a multiple level tier of Tricare, or looking elsewhere, is always start with your healthcare needs, your list of healthcare providers, and the medications you take. And I would start with Tricare to say, are my needs covered and my family's needs covered well under Tricare? Because if they are, that's going to be oftentimes the easiest and the most cost effective. But then you might look to say, well, I need a specialist that's not in this network. Or you might then say, I want to use Tricare for an out-of-network coverage, but just determine ahead of time what it will cost. Because if it could be more cost effective, and this happens more for retirees, if it could be more cost effective to look at other health options, particularly depending on where you live, if there aren't many providers that are in network, if you're going to have a lot of out-of-network Tricare coverage, it might be more cost effective under an Affordable Care Act plan, which are also private insurances as well. So you always start with your own healthcare needs and the medications you take and match them up that way.
Right. And as we know, this is an annual event. People need to choose whether to stay in an employer-sponsored plan, an ACA plan, or Tricare. How easy is it to move between Tricare and other plans and then back to Tricare?
It's easy to move to an Affordable Care Act plan now during annual enrollment, which is November 1st through January 15th. It's also, for many employers, it's their annual enrollment now as well. So a person's going to have to check with their employer and find out what that enrollment period is. The exception to the enrollment period with employers, in my experience, is folks who are in educational settings. They often go on an academic year. But so know when your enrollment period is and when you can leave. And then check with Tricare on their enrollment periods, and if you leave a plan, can you go back into it and when? So it's all about timing, and you just got to know your dates and then do your homework at the right time.
Right. And I suspect if you have pre-existing conditions, do you have anything else to worry about?
Pre-existing conditions are certainly a concern for people. And what that means, I had a health problem before and I'm going to switch. Most of the time, as long as you maintain continuous coverage and you don't have a lapse for more than 60 days, it is not a problem. So if you're in Tricare and you decide that you want to go to an Affordable Care Act plan, during annual enrollment, pre-existing conditions are not a problem. You cannot change at other times during the year without problems and exclusions, but right now during annual enrollment that you won't have an exclusionary period. That would be the same for an employer annual enrollment period. So just know your enrollment periods and never let one plan lapse until you have a new plan in place.
All right. And one thing that we know about ACA plans is that some folks may take advantage of the advanced premium tax credit. Is that sort of thing available to folks on Tricare?
Certainly, the advanced premium tax credit as well as subsidies for deductibles are available to anyone who applies for an Affordable Care Act plan. And actually, there's another subset of those plans that are somewhat related, which is the Child Health Plus Medicaid program for large families. That might be a good coverage option as well. So yes, those cost reduction strategies are available for people. And if you want to test out knowing what your income is versus what a subsidy and a premium tax credit is, I have a really good website for people to go to. It's a Kaiser Family Foundation ACA calculator. We can put it in the notes here. And you can then see, is it worth it for me? What kind of cost and premium relief would I expect? And you can do it down to the zip code level and then say, well, yeah, this is worth me checking out, or perhaps it's not. It's a good way to check it out on the Kaiser Family Foundation site.
All right. So all this sounds a bit overwhelming and confusing. Where else can people go for help?
People can go for help. Certainly start with Tricare. They've got a great website and they have a really good 800 number. And I've found their customer service people to be very user-friendly. So I'd start with them. If you have a concern that Tricare isn't meeting your needs, make sure you understand what your options are and make sure you're optimizing that coverage, because it could be the most cost-effective.
Right.
If you want to evaluate Affordable Care Act plans, then go to healthcare.gov, that's healthcare.gov, and look at those options. They also have an 800 number, which we'll have in the notes, and that people can call them and talk with them. And there are more and more, there are navigators and people, real people you can talk to who can help you sort these things out.
Great. And before we wrap up, Katie, I want to give you a chance to just talk about the book that you've written. And now I forget what edition you're on right now, but just share for a moment what the book title is and what people will learn by reading it.
Oh, thanks for asking, Bob. The book that we've written at Good Care with my colleague Samantha Campbell is Making the Most of Medicare, a Guide for Baby Boomers. We are in our 8th edition, and we're working quickly on our 9th edition, which will be out soon. And this book came out of our work with people who are applying for Medicare and trying to make it as easy as possible, because it is confusing. And it's a large size format in a workbook setting so that people can have the forms they need, they can look at them, they can organize their information and organize their thoughts, and then proceed along in a way that's going to make Medicare suit them the best. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and it's a pleasure having you share your knowledge and wisdom with our viewers and our readers. It's always greatly appreciated, and maybe next time we'll talk about Tricare and Medicare for folks under age 65 and other topics.
Thank you, Bob. I'd love to talk with other topics. Your readers are really benefiting from the people you bring to them, like myself. I'm grateful to be a part of it.